Oblivion Express is the map where we have to destroy trains. They come in from the west, mainly along 2 tracks, and we have to destroy 9 of them to win the game. If we miss more than 1 train on brutal difficulty, we lose the game. Void rifts spawn every 90 seconds, starting from 220. They continuously spawn units until destroyed. Void reanimators revive fallen enemies. Storm clouds move across the map and damage and slow your things inside them.
Dehaka, where do we have him?
Can handle early rifts pretty well, especially if you use 2 Dehakas.
He can slap the early rifts pretty well.
Has worms, which are also pretty good versus rifts, and especially if you have worms mastery, worms cooldown mastery. So the Haka is pretty good, and has pack leaders that, well, blizzards can damage them, but they have a lot of health. So the Haka is actually pretty good here. You can also deal with reanimators pretty good, with worms and with actually impalers. Deal with them pretty good.
Yes.
So and for units, well, since we have blizzards, you can use guardians, but you can also use primal host, because locusts kill trains very fast, but you need to focus the trains then, while pack leaders kill the escort. And, well, that good portion of damage to trains too. So the Haka is solid A tier over here.
Solid A tier. What do you think, Sticksbender?
I'm gonna be honest, I might lean more towards putting Dehaka in B tier. Even with 2 early Dehakas to slap rifts, slapping rifts does take a bit of a while. So at the very least, the first 2 rifts are going to spawn units, which means from the first rift, you are already going to have to start dealing with reanimator spawns.
Yeah, but you eat one, and that's...
Eating a reanimator will put your eat on like a 1-minute cooldown, which is... which is longer than the cooldown on reanimators spawning. They spawn every 50 seconds, and eating one puts eat on a 60-second cooldown. Mind you, we're assuming you have double Taka.
Not really. It's 400 health, so it's 40-second cooldown.
Is it really? I thought the formula...
Yeah. With 200 health and 200 shields.
And it still has to walk there, so you add the time.
I didn't realize the formula was 100 health equals 10 seconds. I thought it was less generous than that. I thought it was like 50 health equals 10 seconds. Feels like that, at least when you ever eat literally anything bigger than a Zergling. It is awful. Yes. Anyways. So that does mean that at least you can somewhat keep up with reanimators, but even still, you need to have those eats in order to heal.
Yes.
You have to manage 2 Dehakas at the same time. You have to micro 2 Dehakas at the same time.
It's not that hard.
Basically, the biggest thing I'm seeing here is I'm looking at this, and is there anything about 2 Dehakas? Like anything? Well, okay. Basically, for early game, there's absolutely no way 2 Dehakas is even comparable to Alarak and a Mothership. It's not even close. The question is Dehaka's late game strong enough to make up for that?
Of course,
because early game, 2 level 1 Dehakas is not going to compete with Alarak and a Mothership. Like 2 Alaraks versus 2 level 1 Dehakas, that might be a bit more fair.
Mothership is strong. But you cannot have Mothership at 220, and you cannot have Alarak at 220. Alarak comes out at 4-minute mark, so that's a big difference.
That's true. So you do have to wait until 4 minutes for both of those.
Yes.
The Hakas come out at 1 minute, so...
But you have Photon Overcharge, which can obliterate things early on, whereas Dehaka has only the 2 Dehakas. This also does mean you are going to have to use 2 Dehakas, which I don't think is something that most people are very familiar with at all. So I think there is a bit more of a skill floor here than just having a Mothership at like 3-ish minutes. It's about 3-ish minutes is when you get a Mothership out realistically. So technically you can even get it as early as like 240 if you really go for it, getting those early gases. But the point is, we'll say 3-ish minutes is when you get a Mothership.
I think I get around 230. It's pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah, 230.
I think you actually can.
Yeah,
I think you
I
actually
did.
can get it 230 if you have like the full optimized
Yeah,
build. I don't really remember what the exact optimized
still, I
timing
think
is
it's
to get it
close
exactly
enough.
the lineup.
It's close enough that it's essentially right as Rift spawn.
Yeah. So, in any case, I think that. Yeah, I think I can confidently say I would rather be an Alarak than a Dehaka, personally. I think that having that 230, 240, maybe 3-minute if your build order is sloppy mothership, is just such a huge deal. It's like your mothership is going to be stronger than 2 level 1 Dehakas. When the Dehakas grow up big and strong, sure, but the 2 level 1 Dehakas, yes. And then in the late game, yeah, Dehaka's probably going to have a bit of an edge in the late game. He's got his very strong pack leader top bars, but I think that the early game is where most of the struggle is going to be. I think that I'd put them in the same tier, but I would say like I'd put Dehaka like slightly below Alarak. So I would say,
I wouldn't agree on that.
but like when I say slightly below, I mean like in the same tier. So that's why I'm saying I don't really think Dehaka can go into A tier.
I don't know about that. I think the Hawk has several advantages. For example, he has worms that can just deep tunnel to far rifts once you get Fog of War on them. I saw Tutu trying to solo this Dehaka. He at the very beginning he sent a few drones on just scouting missions to create Fog of War. So when rifts spawn in later areas, he could just deep tunnel worms to that spot.
But you actually trains actually create fog of war because you have whole tracks or most of the tracks revealed actually.
Yes, so
True, but
Tutu
there's still
sends...
large areas between the tracks that the rifts are able to spawn in.
So where Tutu sends the drones is the areas without or where the trains don't pass through, such as on top of the North Rail and close to the enemy bases. So that's where he sends the workers. Also, the Imperials are pretty good just holding down ramps, so even trickles will just kind of not be able to threaten you very much. Of course, anything that gets through will just get incinerated by what's left of your worms. And creeper hosts are also pretty good at just retaining their value since they're essentially working from home. Whereas stuff like Wrathwalkers, Destroyers, even Ascendants can get stuck in blizzards. And it's going to be very annoying to move them. You have to use a teleport. Sometimes you don't notice. Sometimes your army gets fragmented. Whereas if you have creeper hosts at home, you can just send volley after volley of locusts, and you don't have to worry about them afterwards. Plus,
you can quite literally reach with both Ascendants and Wrathwalkers. They actually have enough range. You can quite literally reach the trains from inside the mutator safe zones. So,
yeah, but creeper hosts have longer range than that.
True, but so if it's long enough, then it doesn't. The difference becomes a lot less once you are looking at how deep into the mutator safe zones you can hit the trains from. You know, I will also note. I believe the only worms you can summon with just the Fog of War being cleared and not having vision are the top bar worms.
Yes, the greater primal worms.
So that does not necessarily mean you have worms at home to defend. I mean, technically you can deep tunnel those worms back home after they've cleared the rift, but that means you're going to have a few top bar worms to defend. You're not going to have like a big static defense line of a whole bunch of worms.
Yes.
Well, you have the normal worms at home to defend. You have field worms because you have minerals.
Also,
well, do you have minerals when you have to consider that we're expecting people to be sending drones to scout parts of the map at the beginning of the game? Like,
also, Dehaka just scales so well in the late game where you can have just a giant Dehaka with, if you see any psionic unit which Voided sometimes spawns psionic units, even if it's Terran, you can just eat the psionic unit and you can just clear essentially the entire wave. Of course, Alarak has that as well.
And of course, you can eat a reanimator. If you tenderize a reanimator, you eat a reanimator and you have like 5 seconds cooldown.
Yeah, anyway.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, anyway, so Alarak also has that, but it's less strong than is Dehaka's. And Dehaka is a lot tankier than Alarak. And Dehaka doesn't eat.
I will say either way, we don't disagree that Alarak has a weaker, like less strong late game than Dehaka, but the concern I have is just the early game is very, very, very bumpy for Dehaka. I don't think that we could put Dehaka in A tier, basically.
Only first 2 rifts are problem, but it's not that big of a problem, actually. It's not that big. You can slap pretty much rifts before reanimators come, and then just eat one, and the other one still hasn't eat anything. So here you have the other Dehaka, and it isn't that big of a problem. So I don't think that Dehaka deserves to be below A tier. That's
no, I don't. I think you are being quite optimistic, saying it's only the first 2 rifts are a problem. I'm gonna be real with you.
Later you have Glavik, you can build worms. You have
no. Glavik is after the first 2 rifts. We're Sticksbender's talking about the first 2 rifts.
Yeah, no, but
no, I'm talking about the first 2 rifts, and then like after the first 2 rifts, you are still gonna have problems for a while. I think. I think that you're not gonna stabilize until like a little while in with Dehaka.
You can have Ravasaurs to reinforce Dehaka for a bit.
You can have impalers like that. No, Hydras are not so expensive. You have a few impalers.
Yeah, you will. Okay, I will know. You'll pretty much. I think you'll almost certainly want some impalers here.
They don't send air units for like
until 10 minutes. Yeah,
10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have options. I mean, it's not great. It's Cold as the Void. It's the only brutal +6 in the entire lineup.
Is it?
I think it is. I think it is the only one. Another one is possibly Off One Mind, but Sharing is Caring does not have a brutal plus number. If it did, it might be the second.
I thought we had like 2 or 3 brutal +6s, but I'm not.
I'm pretty sure this is the only one. Or sorry, Off One Mind is Boombots and Polarity, and Sharing is Caring, or something like that. Yeah, I think that was the one that could possibly be the second brutal +6, but no, Sharing is Caring does not have brutal plus points, so this is the only one that's brutal +6. Anyway, so do we put him in A or B, or do we put him in like, I don't know, somewhere in between A star?
I'm pretty adamant that he goes into B. I don't think he's actually that strong, like got that big of an advantage. Especially like you could also like the alternative way to look at it is, I don't think there's any universe where Dehaka is anywhere near as good as Abathur or Mengsk.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Like 2 Dehakas is definitely worse than 2 Brutalisks, and it will remain worse than 2 Brutalisks until they're like level 8.
But with Abathur, the thing is how to kill trains and escorts, because Brutalists are busy dealing with reanimators, with rifts, and you have blizzards around, and before you get like several
one more thing about
you're in trouble.
One more thing about Dehaka is when you have the slappy boy slapping things, the reanimators and void of spawn units, true, but those same units in the early game are low health units, which means Dehaka can just devour them for health. So while he's slapping the rifts and the reanimators using his normal attacks, the units that they revive or spawn are low enough health that Dehaka can just kind of eat those to sustain his health while he gets his power, while he gets his army powered up, while he gets his tech making, right?
Yes, that's the pretty huge thing, and then you just kill the rift, and then you eat your reanimator, and then you're okay.
So you won't necessarily have to deal with a 40-second cooldown of Devour.
True. Yeah, you won't be worrying about. You hopefully won't be worried about the 40-second very often.
Yeah, I think
you do end up being a bit slower if you're waiting to slap the reanimator and then eat it, and then like time crunch is literally going to be everywhere in this. But
it might not be. What I'm saying is it might not. I'm not saying it won't be. It might not be an issue if the things that the reanimators survive are what you use to eat to sustain Dehaka's health anyway.
Yeah, So the Reanimator does generate things faster than you can eat them, though. So like you will have to eventually eat the Reanimator to stop the flow, because otherwise it'll keep building up until it is literally too much for you to keep up with, and they
but
DPS
at that
you
point,
down because there's so many of them.
At that point, you've
you
stepped on the Reanimators, you've slapped them, you've yelled at them. If you have 2 Dehakas, so maybe it won't be that much to revive. It won't be that much cooldown, with that much health remaining.
All I can say is that like I can concede that Dehaka might actually have a better time than Elrak. Because he does scale a lot better, but I can't say that Dehaka is anywhere near Abathur. Abathur is a lot better than like a lot of people. Like Abathur and Mengsk are both like very much a cut above the majority of commanders here.
The majority.
As I said, Abathur's problem are all the trains. If we have to deal with the other stuff.
What, do we put the Dehaka in B tier? Are you very opposed to B tier, Baumanmarketing?
Yes, I am, because I think that the Dehaka deserves an A tier.
Okay. How about this? I have a solution. Let's stick Dehaka back there. Let's just not put Dehaka in there. And after the rest of this recording, we'll go into a game. Both of I guess both of you can go into a game, and then the Baumanmarketing can try to prove that Dehaka deserves A tier, and then I'll kind of show that replay on the recording. How about that?
Oh boy, I got something. Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't have much time after this. Okay, we'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, we have time. Dehaka, where does he land? So is he A, B, or C?
Well, clearly we need to put him in B tier so that the tier list is nice and smooth.
Clearly.
I wouldn't get Dehaka out of A tier.
I do not think Dehaka belongs in A tier at all. I don't think he's significantly stronger than Elrak. I don't think he's significantly stronger than Kerrigan.
Somewhat
don't
stronger,
think he's significant,
but not a whole tier stronger.
The bigger thing is it's less like I don't think he I think he belongs in B tier because I don't think he's significantly stronger than like a lot of the B tier commanders, and personally I would prefer other B tier commanders over Dehaka. I would think they were stronger, but that's kind of more subjective. They're close enough. However, I am adamant he doesn't belong in A tier at all. He is significant. He is definitely a tier worse than Karax. He is definitely a tier worse than Tychus.
Guys, we're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Fine.
We're done. Okay.
Fine.